Cecil Hurt from the Tuscaloosa News. Good morning, Cecil.
Hey, Gary. How are you this morning?
Very well. I'm really interested to pick your brain because there's a lot of things going on. Let's start with Alabama men's basketball and the fact that Collin Sexton was held out last night, stemming presumably from that FBI probe that cost Kobe Baker his job, and no Collin Sexton last night. So the question I have for you is, do you think we'll see him on Friday night? What's the process look like to get him reinstated and make him eligible?
Yeah, I'd love to be able to answer that, just like Avery Johnson and Greg Byrne would love to be able to answer it, but it just depends on when the NCAA chooses, if they choose to act on reinstatement. So there's no way to speculate. He could be eligible this afternoon. He could be declared eligible next week. He could not be declared eligible. So there's no way to know whether he'll play or not. And for me to say, oh, yeah, he will or he won't, that's just guessing what the NCAA will do, and I'm not going to do that.
You were there last night. Suddenly this basketball team, and the expectations have been out the roof. They were without Collin Sexton, without Braxton Key, who now has a meniscus injury and is going to be out for a while, without Riley Norris. Who else sat out, Cecil?
Armand
Davis, yeah, without Armand Davis. So it was a different-looking basketball team than the fans expected to see against a Lenny Acuff-coached UAH team that can give you problems with their system, and it was a very competitive game. What did you see from that team for that took the floor for Alabama last night? What did you think?
Well, I thought that not surprisingly they looked a little out of sorts coming out. A lot of changes, lots to deal with that they hadn't practiced for. They'd been practicing with Braxton, with Collin, for right up until Monday. So, had to adjust to that a little bit. Had to find a little different rotation and who was going to play. And UAH is well prepared, knows what they want to do offensively. I thought once Alabama kind of got over that and made some adjustments, UAH had a big problem with Alabama's size. Daniel Giddens, Dante Hall inside. And had Alabama, aside from all, Alabama just didn't shoot the ball very well. Just, 3 for 21 from three-point range. And so it ended up being a 7-point game instead of a 17-point game at some junctures in the second. It ended up a 9-point game final. But, had they been 7 of 20 from 3 instead of 3 of 20, it's a little different game. So I think that it's something that they'll have to decide today, tomorrow in practice, what their starting lineup's going to be, who they think will have available against Memphis, and how they want to go. I thought some guys played well. I thought Petty didn't shoot the ball well, but I thought he was active. He's a tough matchup for UAH or anybody else. Giddens was really aggressive inside, really strong, and managed to stay out of foul trouble. Herb, their UAH's best players started out with 14 points and had 24 at halftime, and they put Herb over on him in the second half. And he ended, I think he scored 5 points in the second half because that changes the dynamic too. Again, when you talk about a team's length, it's not just the guys that they have protecting the basket. It's the guys on the perimeter who are 6'6" and 6'7" and can spread out, make it really tough to run your offense. So there were some good things that Avery Johnson plans to work on. I think if you had told him, everything else aside, whether you have Collin or not, whether you have Braxton or not, go get a 9-point win against UAH in your exhibition game, I think you'd have been fine with that.
Cecil, based on the injury with Braxton Key, you have any idea on the timetable for his return?
Meniscus? No, it could be 2 weeks, 4 weeks. I would say probably the safest thing would be to hope that you had it back for conference play starting at the end of December.
Wow. Good debuts for Herb Jones and Petty. And you mentioned Giddens. I mean, 6'11", 250 pounds. I mean, that's a big man. And granted, UAH does not have a particularly tall roster, but to go 8 of 12 from the field in 19 minutes, 17 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 blocks, that's a pretty impressive stat line. Now, I know he's going to play against bigger people in the future, but that's a low post presence that, no disrespect to Dante Hall, but Alabama just has not had that kind of low post presence in recent seasons. Is this something you think that he can maintain? Maybe not those kind of numbers, but solid numbers throughout the season.
Yeah, I think he can. He's got to stay out of you want your bigs to do. Again, they'll have to figure out how they want to work that in the rotation with Dante, with Galen Smith. But you know, he's a rim protector. He can block shots in there. He's a good rebounder and ran the floor well last night, I thought. So, you know, they knew. I mean, when Ohio State signed him, he's a top 50 player. So, you know, they knew that they were getting somebody that could contribute and help for them.
I hate to pound you again on this Collin Sexton deal, but you, as any, you know more about the NCAA than any journalist I know, and you know how wishy-washy that organization can be. Do you think that there is a chance, based on what you know, that this thing with Sexton could drag on for a while, and
Sure,
Alabama
absolutely.
be without him? I mean, is this something
Absolutely.
that could? Okay.
Yeah, that's just the way it works. You know, Alabama hopes not. Alabama will do what they can do on compliance on their end, but Indianapolis is not going to make a decision until they make a decision. You know, they don't have a timetable. They often work with institutions to try and get guys back, and you know, don't want guys to miss playing time if they don't feel like there's a reason. But at the same time, you know, I think that there's a lot that's hit them from this investigation. I think you've got a situation where you've got a lot of schools who are trying to decide what to do. Some schools are withholding guys from play. Other schools are not, based on what their interpretation of the situation is. So, yeah, it's a case by case thing. But you know, I can't put a timetable on it. And he may be back. He may play against Memphis. He may play in the home games next week. You know, he may not play till Christmas. He may not play. You know, that's just an NCAA decision.
Yeah. Well, it's a different basketball team without Collin Sexton and Braxton Key, that's for sure. Football-wise, boy, they're dealing with some issues too, injuries to the linebacking core. I've just never seen a season where this many guys have gone down. Now Sean Dion is out for the season. You've got the kid from Montgomery that's also, Matt Wilson, who's going to be out for a while, probably, you know, the regular season. You're already beat up on that side of the ball. You look at the LSU game, and at one point, Cecil, in the third quarter, they were without half their defense that had started against Florida State. I think 6 guys were out. They managed to hold LSU to 10 points and win the game 24-10. But defensively, this team has changed a lot during the course of this season. Yet they maintained a very, very good defense going forward. What do you think this does to them?
Well, it has an impact. You know, first of all, you cannot. I mean, there's nobody on the bench. You can talk about 5-star recruiting or this guy rates this or this guy rates that. There's nobody over there with Sean Dion's level of experience, the games that he's played in, his ability to make calls defensively. They can't replace that. You know, they can put another guy in there, and if everything goes well and he does a good job, then you know, maybe it's not as big a drop-off as it might be, but you can't replace that kind of experience. And I think Mac had come on and was playing really well. And so, you know, you have to replace those guys. You have to put somebody else in there. And the first priority when you do, although people like athletes, guys that can run and make spectacular plays, but you better have guys who know the defense, know what the calls are, and know what to do. You know, that's the first priority, to be comfortable with what your defense is doing mentally. When you get misaligned, and I'm not saying that was the cause of a big play, but just as an example, you know, they got misaligned against LSU on that Wildcat, and Williams runs for 54 yards. And that was a situation, and Nick Saban said if everybody had been doing the right thing, then that play didn't happen. But half the guys did one thing and half the guys did the other. And those are the situations you want to avoid first. You know, it's not a matter of having a body of somebody. You know, Alabama's recruited well. They've got kids that young men who certainly are athletic enough to play, but they don't have experience. They don't have playing time that translates into success in that way. So that's what they miss most of all, is not, these great athletes are out. It's these experienced guys are out.
The Mississippi State game, they struggled against UMass, but probably with good reason. Sandwiched between A&M and Alabama. Dan Mullen's never beaten Alabama. He's 0-9. Cause for concern, though, for the Tide in this game, going to to Davis Wade Stadium for a nighttime kick. Your thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, it'll be loud. Cowbells will be clanging. Nick Fitzgerald's a good quarterback. They've got some solid players around him, although they really built around him offensively. They've gotten better at the line of scrimmage, I think, than some of their previous teams. So, Alabama's a favorite. I understand, I'd make Alabama a 2-touchdown favorite too. But, look at what they did to LSU. Look at how they played at Texas A&M, and that'll show you that they're a dangerous team. Just at the time, and I talked to Nick Saban about it yesterday. It's not just linebackers, but you do have inexperienced linebackers dealing with sort of that run pass option that they can run really well with Fitzgerald because he can run. You've got to be prepared for that. You've got to know all the things that they can do off that, and they can do. Dan's a really good offensive mind, and they'll do a lot of things, and they'll make some plays. I'll guarantee they'll make some plays.
Alabama trying to finish this thing off, and you look at Georgia, who's 9-0 for the first time since 1982. They sit in the East Division where they've already clinched. In the East Division, clearly behind the West again. And here's Alabama. If Auburn wins on Saturday against Georgia, it's going to come down in the Iron Bowl for the right to get to Atlanta. It is what it is. But this Alabama team, I keep telling fans this that keep texting me. I mean, it's been a good season so far, but clearly these next couple of games are going to decide how fans feel about this season. And if you go into the Iron Bowl with a winner-take-all, Auburn's going to like their chances. Cecil, as you know, when they have really good teams, they've given Alabama some trouble, and it's been Bryant's years since Alabama's won 4 in a row against that team. And I know I'm jumping ahead here, but just some early thoughts from you on the Iron Bowl and what that game could be all about.
Yeah, we'll have to see how they play against Georgia. We'll have to see what the outcome of that is, because it's if they win, it's one thing, and if they don't, it's another.
Right.
So, and that's a toss-up game, probably, 2.5-point line. So we'll see psychologically how that shakes out. The situation was the same. It's the identical situation to what it was 4 years ago. Alabama, except Georgia hadn't clinched the East. It was a different situation for Georgia, but it's exactly the same situation as it was 4 years ago for Alabama and Auburn. Alabama's about to, the Alabama's sitting there in Starkville. They're about to play, about to have chance to clinch the West, and Auburn throws a long pass and it bounces off 2 defensive backs, and they grab it for a touchdown and win the game. So could that happen again? Sure. Will it happen? It doesn't happen often, but it happens occasionally. So you just have to see on that situation. That aside, even if Auburn loses to Georgia 35-0, they would still love nothing better than to ruin Alabama's season. That's motivation will be there regardless. So I don't put total stock in. Well, if they beat Georgia, it's one thing, and if they lose to Georgia, it's another. It's a different situation, but it doesn't change the situation that they would love to ruin Alabama's season, even if they can't go to Atlanta. And if they can go to Atlanta, obviously their goals are in front of them.
Cecil, the Alabama offense, there's still some that are telling me that Tua needs a role on this team for Alabama to finish this off. And yet you look out there in the LSU game and in the big games that Alabama's played, the tight games, Jalen's gone the whole way. And I'm like everybody else. I watch Tua throw the football, and it's clear he's a natural thrower of the football. He's got some God-given talents. But I have some people tell me that I respect that say, listen, Alabama will not be able to win a national championship unless Tua has a role in this offense. Your take on that.
How do they know that? How can you make that announcement? Why didn't they say at the first of the season? Well, they won't be 9-0 if Tua runs the offense. They don't know. They're not at practice. How do people know that? Alabama could win the national championship with Jalen playing. And, it just reaches a point where you can blather about it all you want.
Right.
The coaching staff and the head coach didn't think that it would help them win the game to put him in against LSU. So if you know more than he does, great. But to sit there and say they can't do this unless they put the backup quarterback in is the stupidest thing I ever heard.
I'm with you.
Anybody who's telling you that, tell them they're stupid.
I'm with you, Cecil. I mean, I'm with you 100%.
That's such nonsense. All they want to do is set Jalen up for failure. to say, oh, if Alabama, for whatever reason, plays a really good team or has trouble with all these linebackers being injured, then they can say, well, I told you he couldn't do it. And that's nonsense. That kid, that's ridiculous to treat him that way.
James, get a
And
promo.
they don't know what Toole will do in those situations any more than anybody else knows.
James, get a promo ready for that. Final thing, Cecil, and listen, I'm right on with you on that. I'm just like you. I'm tired of hearing it. Second playoff rankings come out tonight, and I know everybody says in the mix it really doesn't matter if you're one or you're two, but you're so good at dissecting and you're so analytical. I guess my question is, I mean, and nobody knows what that committee, I guess, what information they're using. I look at it, it's my way of viewing it is just pretty simple. If you're going to name 4 teams, to me, it's, well, I think this is the best team, so I'm going to make them number 1. And maybe they think Georgia's better than Alabama, but all this stuff about the schedule and the analytics and all that, I don't get it. And I don't care that Georgia's number 1. I really don't, because it doesn't matter at this point. But to me, if you put Georgia number 1, you're saying that Georgia's better than Alabama, and I don't agree with that. I'm just wondering, about your take on how this committee comes about these, putting these rankings together.
Well, there has to be, some quantifiable information. There has to be some mathematics involved, because when it's just subjective. For instance, if you're a Wisconsin fan, if you were doing this show in Madison, you could say that Wisconsin's the best team, and there's no proof that they're not. They've beaten everybody that's been on their schedule, but I don't think Wisconsin's one of the best 4 teams, and you don't think it. So there has to be some eye test involved. I don't have a problem with Georgia being number 1 or Notre Dame being number 1 had they won that game, which would certainly be the case based on what the committee's done. So I think that what they try to do, you can't be everything to everybody. And I agree with you that their job is to pick the best 4 teams and not to promote good matchups between teams. We all like good matchups between teams. We all would like to have seen Florida State run the table after Alabama played them. Nothing that Alabama could do to control that. A lot of years you schedule Florida State and they stay in the top 5 for the entire year. Didn't happen this year. But, it's not the committee's job to make people schedule better. That's not what their mandate is. But I think they do try and reward that because they think that's what fans want to see. Obviously, you can look at what Las Vegas says and say, neutral field, Alabama would be favored against this team, this team, this team, this team. Now, what you might have in that situation is, right now, despite their 2 losses, they might say Ohio State's one of the best 4 teams. And, I don't think anybody would sit here and argue that Ohio State should be in the playoff with the losses that they have. So I think that you have to be careful about what your mandate is as the committee. But, the difference in 1 and 2, and what's worse, people will argue whether Alabama's beat a ranked team or not. Well, is LSU a good win because they're a good team and playing better, but they're not. It's the same thing as playing Idaho because LSU's 26th in the AP poll instead of 25th, and they may be in the college football poll at 25th tonight. But people get so wrapped up in who's 23rd and who's 25th. Look at the team. If you think you want to go play LSU the way they're playing right now on a neutral field, and you think that they're better or worse than Syracuse, that's fine. You can argue that if you want to, but people get wrapped up in the minutia. Alabama's situation is they need to win games. They need to beat Mississippi State Saturday. They need to beat Auburn and be in Atlanta and beat Georgia, and then they don't have to worry about anything any committee does.
You're right. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Cecil Hurt, you can follow him on Twitter at Cecil Hurt, and of course, read him at tidesports.com and in the Tuscaloosa News. Great stuff, Cecil. I appreciate it, man.
Thanks, sure.